Life, especially disabled life, is unpredictable. You move through these seasons of change and transition, and then you go through seasons of stagnancy, and you go back and forth between them in these cycles that are never ending. And you have to find a way to navigate your way through that. For me, this is definitely a time of transition. First, my school announced its closure, and I was completely dumbfounded because this announcement came without any sort of warning. So I made a lot of plans. I thought I'd be able to graduate early, but that fell through. So I changed my plan completely. I decided to focus on doing the work that I had originally planned on doing before the school announced its closure. But even with that new plan, I had to adjust it because the stress of the school closing, stress caused by my mom having health issues, myself having health issues, I was working a lot slower than I had intended to. Long story short, every time I tried to make a plan, I had to change it. I had to adjust and adapt because something would come up inevitably. Starting over and adapting is something that I've had to learn as a result of going through hospital visits, school closures, academic struggles, and a constantly changing baseline of health. The time will pass anyway, so for me, it's making the most of that time. And making the most of that time means not dwelling on plans that don't work, not dwelling on the way things could have been, but focusing on how you can adapt and change and still make your way to the goal that you set for yourself, even if it looks different to your original plan. To me, in my disabled life, success means being able to adapt. Success means being able to adjust my plans to meet myself where I am, rather than trying to force myself past my limits. And that kind of success is sustainable, but finding ways to that success doesn't negate the grief that you go through every time you have to change your mind, every time you have to adjust your plans, and every time you have to let go of something that you thought you were going to do. And to me, the thing about grief is not how can we get over it or how can we make it go away. The thing about grief is how do we live with it and how do we let it have its space while not consuming us entirely. And finding ways to live through the grief rather than trying to live around it and bypass it. Ways I'm living through the grief of this transitory period is reading things that have nothing to do with my schoolwork, because reading is still one of my favorite things to do, and it's something that genuinely makes me feel better. So I'm making space and making time for reading. I'm also writing how I'm feeling about what's going on without censoring myself, because I feel like journaling is something that helps me process my emotions a lot better than just ruminating on them endlessly. When I journal, I try not to give myself any limitations on what journaling will look like. Sometimes I will have bullet points, sometimes I will have lists, and sometimes I will have just full stream of consciousness writing for 3 pages. But most importantly, I try not to alter my narrative to be more positive or more uplifting than it is. It's okay for it to be sad. It's okay for it to be confused and messy and human, essentially, because I'm writing to be seen and witnessed. And if I spend that time editing myself, I will feel just as unheard and unseen as I was before I started. I've done a lot of journaling recently around the theme of letting myself be seen and letting myself be witnessed in my humanity and my wholeness, no matter what it looks like. Spending time in my mother's garden. It's easy to forget doing basic things like spending time with your community when you're overwhelmed by the change that's all around you. Something as simple as asking someone to sit outside with you on a sunny day can really make a difference, more than you might think. You don't have to talk about anything major. You can simply just enjoy each other's company. Weeding and picking mint. There's something about using my hands when I'm in my feelings. It helps me focus and ground myself. It helps me get out of my own head, because that's usually where I end up ruminating for hours on end. So one of my favorite things to do is get lost in either crafting or helping something flourish, like with weeding the garden. That's actually why my hands are dirty in this clip, because I have been weeding several thistles out of the garden before it started blooming. And I then was like, while I'm dirty, might as well get some mint. My mom has been growing this mint patch since we lived here, I think, and I am obsessed with it. I love mint tea. It's one of my favorite teas ever since I was little. And it helps me a lot with my IBS and stomach issues. So it's something that I cherish dearly. Also, shaving my head. There's something so cleansing and healing about shaving my head that whenever I'm going through a tough time, I usually reach for the clippers first. I've also been trying to give into whimsy as much as I can, like picking wild violets to dry and keep for when it's barren and cold outside in the winter. Or taking pictures of the progress of the plants in my mom's garden just so I can have a log of them. It doesn't have to be anything big, but just allowing myself to be silly and goofy and have fun when I'm usually stressed and worried and working. Adaptability comes from the experiences you go through. I don't think it's something that you can practice independently from life. I feel like life is the practice. Because you have to learn how to respond to the changes and the incidents that you cannot control. Start off as reactive beings, I think, but what changes is our level of experience. So I think the more that you go through failed plans, the more that you go through inevitable, out of your control things that stop you from doing what you wanted to do, the more you're able to learn to adapt and respond in an intentional way that still allows you to meet your goal. I wanted to share this story with you guys because I have been there. I have been in the spot where I've had plans that I put weeks of thought into just crumble before my eyes. And I've been devastated, and I've let that devastation completely derail me from what I've been trying to do. If you take away nothing else, know that to be prepared to meet life's inevitability, you have to stay flexible and stay open to different ways of meeting the same goal. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Make sure that you like and subscribe to keep up with me and all of my updates. It really helps me know that you guys want to see more from me.